Happy Monday to you, Bengals fans. This is Anthony Cosenza joining you on the Monday News Jump, courtesy of CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Happy to have you with us. You can probably see by my name tag there, feeling the Monday today. Case of the Mondays for you Office Space fans out there. You know what I'm talking about. How's everybody doing? I know yesterday was a rough one, and you may be having a hangover in multiple senses of the word on this Monday, but happy to have all of you with us. We're going to run through a lot of different new pieces of news today. A lot of headlines, both with the Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC North, and then, of course, the NFL as well. I'm going to just put this one up by Christian on Facebook. Surprised that heads didn't roll today. So far, as we sit here at 3:35 Eastern on Monday, there have not been any significant moves made in terms of coaching staff shakeups. No trades to speak of at this point. That doesn't mean that there is not news to go through today, so we will do that. I'm going to try and start off on a little bit of a positive note. It's kind of a backhanded compliment that someone from ESPN gave the Cincinnati Bengals, but it's one that also provides quite a bit of hope. It is from Dan Orlovsky, former quarterback in the league, played for the Lions and other teams in the NFL. He is now on the Get Up show, one of their flagship shows on ESPN. He, Rex Ryan, and Mike Greenberg, I believe, were talking this morning, both about both Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and their respective performances that they've given in the first half of the season. Both are basically the front runners for offensive rookie of the year right now. Of course, Joe Burrow coming off the 400-yard passing day and 4 touchdowns against the Browns, 3 through the air, 1 on the ground. Not enough to get the win, but both guys only have 1 win to their name, I think. And, they're both in the running here based on the stats that they've put up. So I want to put this, in case you didn't see it, on Twitter. I'm going to play this. There is volume to this, so I'm going to play this, and then we're going to go through the rest of the headlines here. But you can see this is from Dan Orlovsky's Twitter account. I beg of you, Bengals and Chargers, and it says basically there's a quote in here, quote, "Please spend money to support these quarterbacks because if you do, they will bring you both Super Bowls. They are that good." So here you go.
We got Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. What do you want to say about that?
Listen, there's a rule in the NFL that you don't count another man's money. But I'm pleading to Mike Brown for the Cincinnati Bengals and the Spanos family for the Chargers. Please spend money to support these quarterbacks, because if you do, if you change your ways of the past when you did not want to spend, they will both bring you Super Bowls. They are that good. Joe Burrow plays like a 10-year veteran, and not like a good one, but a really, really good to great one. Justin Herbert, anything that you can say about what you want in a quarterback, this kid has. Please, organizations that have notoriously not supported players, do so with these young quarterbacks. They will win you Super Bowl.
So there you have it, coming from a former professional quarterback. I know it's a little bit of a slight in terms of what he said about the specific organizations, but not really inaccurate in some respects from what Dan Orlovsky said from the organizational perspective, but also a little bit interesting in terms of his belief that Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert are Super Bowl caliber winning quarterbacks. I put out a tweet also, just fantasy thinking. Think about 3-4 years down the line, and all of a sudden you've got the perennial AFC Championship game is always Justin Herbert versus Joe Burrow. Wouldn't that be something if that ends up being the case? You got a Peyton Manning, Tom Brady type of rivalry potentially brewing there. That would be kind of neat, but we're a far cry from that with both teams being cellar dwellers, and really the Chargers have even the upper hand over the Bengals because of a head-to-head win in Week 1. So I wanted to start off with that. There's a little bit of a positive spin there with that. I also wanted to start off with another bit of positive news. Pretty much all of Bengaldom knows this at this point, but especially if you were kind enough to join us for the Narragansett pregame show yesterday, this came across the wire, but the Bengals are hosting former Bills offensive lineman Quinton Spain. And not only did this make sense just based on how the offensive line played throughout most of this season, but also yesterday the injuries that they accrued. At some point yesterday, they had 4 reserve guys who started the season as reserve offensive linemen playing in the game against the Browns, and the lone starting guy from week 1 is a guy who's kind of been a little up and down this year, and Mike Jordan. So, I mean, they had Alex Redmond at right guard. Bobby Hart went out. Hakeem Adeniji had to replace him at right tackle late in the game. Billy Price stepped in for Trey Hopkins at center, and then you had Fred Johnson stepping in for Jonah Williams, who had a neck injury at left tackle early in the game. So not a good situation for the Bengals. But, hey, you know what? Even with that, the Bengals and those reserve offensive linemen held their own. The Bengals put up 34 points. And really, at the end of – they didn't run the ball well, but the pass protection for who you had out there definitely held up. So you had to – you have to give props there. But Quentin Spain makes a lot of sense right now. He would step in and probably, by most accounts, be a starting right guard. And then you can either move Alex Redmond to left guard, move Xavier Su'a-Filo, who has played the majority of his pro snaps at left guard. Maybe you move him over there and start, and you've got Spain and Su'a-Filo once he comes back, probably right after the bye. And then you've got things hopefully in better shape. We don't have any updates, by the way, on the severity of Trey Hopkins or Jonah Williams. I'm assuming Trey Hopkins, because he had a concussion, will be in protocol this week. We don't know more about Jonah Williams' neck injury and the severity there. Hopefully, I mean, anytime you hear neck injury, that's always scary, but hopefully there's nothing there that is something that lingers long-term, because Jonah Williams was playing pretty well this season, was playing well of late, did get beat pretty badly on the play that he may have been injured on against Myles Garrett, who ended up getting a strip sack on Joe Burrow, and a turnover was forced there. But overall, Jonah Williams has had a nice start to his career, which is in basically his rookie season right now. So, hopefully he comes back. Same with Trey Hopkins. And then if they add in Quentin Spain, you've got some options there in the interior of the offensive line, which is what they need. Unfortunately, Spain isn't really known for his run blocking. He's more known for his pass pro, but, the Bengals need help in both respects right now. So couldn't hurt to bring him in. And usually, especially with the COVID situation going on, if a team brings in a guy right now for a visit, that's usually a pretty strong indication that they're going to sign, but we'll see if that actually happens. But the Bengals are bringing in Quentin Spain, so that may be a headline to watch later in the week going forward here. Let's move on to a little bit of some things that are not of the positive side. We started off with a couple pieces of positive news, and now here we go with some others. This may be something you saw a couple days ago. The Bengals asking prices for some of their guys they're trying to trade are, quote, unreasonable per sources. And this is from CBS, Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports. I'm hearing a lot of chatter, but the asking prices seem unreasonable. Now, this may change because of the gentleman pictured there. We'll talk more about that in a second. But basically, the guys to watch here at this point might be A.J. Green, John Ross, maybe even Billy Price, but that would depend on what happens with Trey Hopkins and how they feel about that whole situation. And by the way, that's an option too. The Bengals could potentially, maneuver things around Trey Hopkins at a guard spot if they want, keep Billy Price in at center if they want to do that. And then you got Quentin Spain, and that's an alignment. So you have Hopkins at guard, maybe you have Price at a guard. I don't know, but the Spain move would provide them with flexibility if they make that move. Anyway, trade rumors for the Bengals: A.J. Green, Carlos Dunlap, probable targets of guys being out there being asked about, John Ross, maybe Billy Price. And then, of course, there may be a couple of other names that we don't think about that are floating out there. Maybe a linebacker. I don't know. I would be hard-pressed to see if that ends up taking place because the Bengals needed so much help and grabbed so many new guys this year. But those are some of the guys that are probably being asked about in terms of the Cincinnati Bengals. But as of a couple of days ago, the asking prices were too high. That may change, however, because of what happened after the game. And we can talk about it quite a bit, but we will save it because I think it's gotten a lot of airtime right now. But Carlos Dunlap kind of aired some dirty laundry again, and came to put out on his social media basically that his house is for sale, and he put it out on social media. And then, unfortunately, this situation that is ugly keeps getting uglier, because now you've got Tyler Boyd commenting on Carlos Dunlap's post about potentially selling his apartment, calling it sucka, SH, bad word. So here is the post that Carlos Dunlap put out. I believe it was on Twitter. 6,000 square foot city view with huge balcony, 4-bedroom, 4.5 bath, and one of the best school districts for sale. Do your market analysis and make me an offer. Serious inquiries only with proof of funds. Owner is willing to sell furnished or unfurnished with someone like myself who has a real estate license. That is a very interesting tweet, and one that is intriguing. But on the other hand, as a Bengals fan, that is very kind of disheartening to see. You can see here, a lot of you saw that Carlos Dunlap was arguing with a coach at the end of the game once the Browns went up with the winning score. And then, of course, you had right here, I won't say the word, but you can see it, Tyler Boyd's response to what Carlos Dunlap put out there on his Instagram, Twitter, all of that. I will say this about Tyler Boyd. I respect the heck out of him seemingly sticking up for the team and saying, dude, what are you doing posting this? But I will also say that Carlos Dunlap has 6 more years in Cincinnati than Tyler Boyd does. Tyler Boyd was drafted in 2016, Carlos Dunlap in 2010. So Carlos Dunlap has seen quite a bit more of the Bengals organization than Tyler Boyd. So take that for what you will. I misspoke a couple of minutes ago because something just came across the wire about injury updates to the offensive linemen I mentioned, Jonah Williams, Trey Hopkins, and Bobby Hart. So this is on CincyJungle.com, courtesy of my OBI co-host, John Sheeran. Jonah Williams is awaiting more info on his neck. Early indications are it's not overly serious. And this is from Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. Might miss this week, but then with the bye, he could return after it. Further tests are coming. So day to day looks scary when it happened, but things are looking up, is what Zach Taylor described. Hopkins, again, as I predicted, concussion protocol. Bobby Hart's going to be out this week. It looked like it was an ankle or a knee type of issue he got rolled up on. So we may be not seeing Bobby Hart for a while. It could be Fred Johnson time. It could be Hakeem Adeniji time. Maybe even both. Maybe they're going to kind of see what they got out of both of them. But this offensive line is officially going to be, again, under construction, a work in progress. And there's unfortunately some injuries striking to some pretty important players. And by the way, I know we and fans and myself have all been very, very hard on Bobby Hart. He had arguably his best day ever, at least by Pro Football Focus yesterday. I think he had a score in the 80s. So he played pretty well. He's been slowly and steady. Let me try that again. He's been slow and steady in terms of gaining some consistency this year. And you like what he's been showing the past couple of weeks, kind of shutting us up. Still, what you have to wonder, I mean, he's a guy in his mid-20s. He's still pretty young for the amount of years he's accrued in the NFL. What you have to wonder is he a guy that is finally hitting his stride and ascending as a football player as he enters his quote-unquote prime of his career? Or is he a guy that is just kind of having one of those flash-in-the-pan seasons and it's just working over the past couple of games? I don't know. Hopefully it's the former and not the latter. Hopefully it's a guy that ends up, doing some more positive things for the Cincinnati Bengals going forward. So that's the injury update of those 3 guys as of just a little bit ago, courtesy of CincyJungle.com. Here is the snap counts, in case you were wondering. This is very interesting, and there are a couple of different facets to also touch upon with this. This is also CincyJungle.com and courtesy of my co-host John Sheeran. You can find this there. So obviously no Mix and no William Jackson. They were hurt. You can see here the Bengals outsnapped the Browns 75-52. So the Bengals had more offensive plays by far. And that's indicative of the amount of throws that Baker Mayfield threw and Joe Burrow threw. You can just look at that and know. But this is just incredible. For 3 quarters, the Browns completed every legitimate pass they attempted, and their starting running back averaged over 4 yards per carry. That is not good for the Bengals defense, ladies and gentlemen. And Baker Mayfield set, yet again, the Cincinnati Bengals allowing others to set records. Baker Mayfield set a franchise record for the Cleveland Browns for consecutive, I believe it was 21 or 22, consecutive pass completions. And the only incomplete pass he had was a late in the game spike. It was pretty incredible. Baker Mayfield is an absolutely different quarterback when he plays the Cincinnati Bengals than other teams. I said it yesterday on the post-game show, 17 touchdowns in 6 games played, and he's 5-1 against him. Just a different quarterback. Mike Thomas got a few more snaps than Auden Tate, and Alex Erickson didn't even see an offensive snap. So Mike Thomas, and he had a couple big catches, did have a drop, but he's obviously in the good graces of Zach Taylor, a guy he is familiar with from the Rams. And then, you see the 30 snaps each from Jonah and Trey went out basically at the same time. And so now you had, Fred Johnson and Billy Price come in and play in their stead. Hakeem Adeniji came in late. So we'll see what happens at the end of these next couple of games with Adeniji, if he's going to come in and end up playing and starting at right tackle. Because if you remember, they brought in Fred Johnson early this season, and he did not play very well. But that, albeit that was at guard, but just did not play well there. You can see here the 2 guards yesterday, Redmond and Jordan, played 100% of the snaps. So did Joe Burrow. Those are the only 3 guys to play all of them. Drew Sample getting a huge amount of snaps, and he actually played pretty well yesterday. 5 catches, over 50 yards, had a pretty decent day. Did miss the one in the end zone, but it looked like there might have been some pass interference there. Potentially wasn't called. Bobby Hart, you can see, played quite a few until that last drive there. Had to leave. So that's not good. AJ Green getting more comfortable. He has close to 180 yards receiving over the past 2 weeks, so you got to like that. T. Higgins getting more and more snaps and more involved. He is a star in the making, folks. He looks very, very good. Tyler Boyd had another very strong game against the Browns. Gio Bernard, surprisingly only 76% of the snaps with Mixon out. You kind of felt like he'd maybe have a little bit more, also because of the fact that he can block. He can catch, but did not happen. They brought in P. Ryan a couple times. I hope, for the sake of the production of the offense and for comfortability of Joe Burrow, I hope Gio Bernard gets some more snaps. I know the Bengals are paying a lot of money to Joe Mixon, but he is outstanding in pass protection. I feel like I've said that a bunch of times, but he is outstanding in pass protection. He is a guy that can catch the ball. He showed that. He made a difficult catch for the go-ahead touchdown late in the game. Just a great football player. I really you sometimes need reminding what 25 brings to the football team, and you saw it pretty well on Sunday. And what's a shame is the week prior, the Bengals and Zach Taylor actually had a couple of snaps where both Gio and Mixon were in on the same formations. I hope that continues once Mixon is back as soon as this week. We'll see what happens there, but hopefully that continues so that the Bengals can mix up their offensive looks there. You see Fred Johnson and others with the snap counts here. Let's just move to defense before we get to a couple more facets to this. Von Bell played every single snap on defense, and he got burned a couple times in coverage against tight ends. Just not, and really the defensive coaches are not putting him in the positions that he's an in the box safety kind of guy. He helps against the run. He can help you against really short passes, but as you get to those intermediate routes where he has to chase a talented tight end, an athletic tight end, maybe even a wide receiver, that is not his forte. And unfortunately, they keep putting him in that situation, and it's not working. He really had a tough day against the Browns. So you see LaShawn Sims getting all defensive snaps there. Darius Phillips, who had an up and down day, to say the least, 50 snaps, almost all of the defensive snaps, had a very, very incredible interception to start the game. and help the Bengals out. And then, of course, you have the letting up of a couple big plays on the final drive there for the go-ahead score. I mean, the other thing too, I'm kind of razzing on Bell and Phillips a little bit, but, if you look at those plays, the coverage is there. They just didn't track the ball well, or the ball just kind of snuck up on them and went through their hands. I mean, Bell was right there a couple of occasions, just was like a millisecond late on getting in there. And, same with Phillips on that last play to Peoples-Jones, who got the game-winning touchdown. I mean, the ball went right through his hands. He was right there. And these are just good plays by wide receivers and excellent throws by Baker Mayfield. And unfortunately, when you're a bad team, you're not getting the breaks. You're not creating the breaks for yourself. And unfortunately, that is kind of what happened there with Bell and Phillips. You can see the rest here. Christian Covington's become a nice little pickup for this team. I know he's pressed into more action than what a lot of people thought, and I know the coaches had hoped. They kind of wanted him to be a rotational player, not necessarily a starting player, but he's played pretty well. Big guy, and he's done pretty well for what has been asked of him. Xavier Williams, kind of the same thing. Another guy they were hoping was maybe going to be a rotational guy, and didn't is getting more snaps. Marcus Hunt got his first action, 21 snaps. You saw him go play a run play pretty well early in the game as he contained the edge nicely. I think it forced a loss, or at least a no gain there. So he had a nice play there. Unfortunately, guys, the pressure wasn't there. The sacks weren't there. And that is really the way that you have to beat Baker Mayfield. You got to get him rattled, and that's what forces the errant throws, and the Bengals did not do that on defense. Here's where we're going to go next. Geno Atkins, 12 snaps on defense. Same with Carlos Dunlap and his disgruntled self, 12 snaps. And you have to ask yourself, when you're not getting to the quarterback, why aren't these guys? I know you're trying to maybe prove a point as a coach, or maybe, some things aren't meshing well with what their skill set brings to your plan, but it's not when you're not getting to the quarterback and those guys aren't getting snaps. I don't know what that tells the rest of your team. I will say this is courtesy of our old friend Rebecca Toback. Zach Taylor said today in a media roundtable that on Geno Atkins' snap count, I know that's what he feels comfortable with right now. Geno and I have had some good conversations. He's a class act. So could be coach speak, but that is something that at least sounds like they're on the same page with. And obviously they're easing Geno back in from that shoulder issue, whatever that was. And, if it is a pretty serious, we're now going into almost 2 months of Geno Atkins having a shoulder issue. You can pile on Zach Taylor all you want, and there's a lot of reason to, but his best offensive player was gone for all of last year in AJ Green, and he hasn't had the full use of Geno Atkins through almost 2 months of games so far this year, his best defensive player. I know there are a lot of issues and a lot of points of contention, and excuses are like, what, everybody has them. But when you're losing your two best players to start off your season, that's not necessarily a good thing and not an easy thing to overcome. I will quickly continue on the snap count type of situation because I thought this was pretty interesting. This is how Joe Burrow divided up the targets this last week. So you can look at this. This is on Cincy Jungle as well. Here are the targets right here, right in the bottom of the page here. That said, here is a full list of the target share. AJ Green and Tyler Boyd both had 13 targets. A lot of targets for AJ Green. He's finally hauling in quite a few of those passes. Unfortunately, there's still some contested balls that he's not getting. There are still some touchdowns that are left out there, some big plays that are left out there that they're just not connecting on. But there are a lot of nice quick hitters, nice chain moving plays. Those are coming far more frequently than they did at the beginning of the year. So you have to like that. So he and Boyd have had 13 targets each. I think Boyd had 11 catches on that. I'd have to double check. I don't have that in front of me, but Boyd had a very good game. Drew Sample, I mentioned he had the 5 catches on the 6 targets. T. Higgins, 5 targets. He had a pretty big game, including a touchdown reception. Gio Bernard, I think he had 5 catches on all 5 of those targets, including a touchdown reception. So you got to like that. Mike Thomas, 2 catches on those 3 targets. And then he did target P. Ryan once, I think, for a short gain on a little swing out, and Auden Tate there one time. So that is the pass distribution. You can see, I mean, that's 8 different targets. You got to like that, mixing it up and not just honing in on one guy. And part of the thing that continues to impress about Joe Burrow is his ability to keep his eyes upfield when plays break down, and his ability to find another receiver that isn't the primary one, or look off a primary and fool the defense to get a big gain off of a secondary or tertiary receiver there. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza with CincyJungle.com and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Happy to have you all with us. I'll be here for a couple more minutes going through some more headlines about the Cincinnati Bengals around the AFC North and around the NFL. Tried to get to as much updated info as possible because some injury updates kind of came about and some quotes from Zach Taylor came about shortly before we took the air. I used to start doing these a little earlier in the day, but I've kind of found that, press conferences and all that kind of stuff, those kind of happen midday-ish, early afternoon-ish Eastern time. So I got to wait a little bit to make sure that we get the clearest picture so I can relay all of the best info to you all. You can get our programs, whether it's the Orange and Black Insider, whether it's Orange is the New Black with Ace and Zim, or Matt Minnick's Chalk Talk. You can get it on any number of your favorite audio platforms. We're on all the major ones, Google, iTunes, all of that. Go check us out. And then over by my left shoulder here, there's a little icon. If you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and click that to subscribe to our channel so you know when we go live. You can join us live. You can submit listener questions that we answer live, or you can be notified when new content is available so you can get it and check it out. Appreciate the support. I'm going to do a quick scan of some other, I guess we got to get to this one. This is another not so great headline, but Zach Taylor's start to his head coaching career has been one of the worst in NFL history. Yippee. And I think this is courtesy of our good friend Joe Reedy, who used to work for the Cincinnati Enquirer. Good guy. I like Joe. We follow each other on Twitter. He's a good guy. He's a Browns guy. He likes taking a little jab at the Bengals when he can. But if you see this is interesting here. John McKay, who went 0-23 back in 76 and 77 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Jim Ringo, who went 3-20 with the Bills. Zach Taylor is at 3-19-1 with a 152 win percentage record. And as Joe Reedy notes, neither of those two preceding names made it to game number 24 as a head coach. And of course, as we know, the Cincinnati Bengals have the Tennessee Titans this week. So that's not going to be an easy feat. And then, of course, after the bye, they do have the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. So not setting up for an easy next couple of games for Zach Taylor. There is some light at the end of the tunnel at the end of the schedule. There are a lot of seemingly soft games for the Bengals, including some against the NFC East and others. So the Bengals could scratch together a couple of wins at the end there. Maybe they play well against Pittsburgh. Who knows? It being a divisional game. I mean, after all, even with these, pretty competitive or good good teams, they've been one-score games. They've been one-score games for the most part, with the exception of Baltimore. And, maybe they figure out how to finally get over that hump there. I don't know, but not a great stat line for Zach Taylor in terms of wins, losses, and NFL history. I'm going to make sure we didn't I guess I'll share this quickly because I've gone through so many other Bengals headlines and I want to get to some other stuff. This is the Bengals news link story. So I'm just going to share this really quick. If you go, there's on Bengals.com some quotes. What was Zach Taylor's message? Quote, stick together. You could tell it was an emotional locker room afterward for the right reasons. It's guys, that moment after in the locker room, it's tough to find those words to say to them because you totally felt like you were going to win and you didn't. That has happened to us a couple of times. This is a team that believes it can put together a winning streak, 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. We believe in it. We just haven't done it. We've proven it to the outside world, but we're going to stick together. I promise you that. It's a group of men I'm proud to coach. We're going to get through this. We're going to stick together, and there's much better days ahead. End quote from Zach Taylor. Good words, strong words. Got to start putting together those wins. And by the way, a winning streak is, the fact that he mentions a winning streak, that is quite bold, given the fact that he hasn't even put together a 2-game winning streak at any point with the Cincinnati Bengals yet. So I like the quote. I like what he's saying, but words are words. They got to start winning some games, and they got to start closing out some games. I mentioned this earlier. The Bengals, just quickly, the Bengals face these two teams the next couple of weeks, but they have these two teams, the Titans and the Steelers, played each other yesterday in what very well could be an AFC championship type of preview. 27-24, Pittsburgh won. Pittsburgh is rolling, folks. They are rolling. They got Big Ben back, and they are playing very, very good football. And, they're doing a lot of things on offense. You see, Big Ben didn't throw 3 picks here, but he has largely played very, very well. 2 touchdowns. You see James Conner's rolling, as their running game always seems to do. And you see they've got a nice 3-headed monster at wide receiver here. Juju, of course, is a very productive guy. He's made Pro Bowls. Deontay Johnson is becoming a nice player for them. 80 yards and 2 scores. I sat him on my fantasy team. That was fun. And, of course, Claypool, who didn't really do anything this Sunday, but he has been one of the other guys that has been in the Offensive Rookie of the Year conversation. Basically, he and Higgins have kind of been the best rookie wide receivers of this year. And I guess Justin Jefferson should be in that conversation as well. But those guys are putting up a lot of numbers and a lot of production, just not today or yesterday, rather, for Claypool. But Pittsburgh's 6-0 and Tennessee's 5-1. That could very well be an AFC playoff matchup this year. And a very good game. Unfortunately for us Bengals fans, the Titans failed to kick. Gostkowski, man, he is struggling. He failed to kick a last-second field goal there to potentially tie it up, send the thing to overtime, and but did not on their home turf. Pittsburgh comes away victorious, 6-0. So these are the next 2 teams the Bengals play with a bye sandwiched in between those games. Pretty daunting. If the Bengals are able to beat one, maybe even both of these teams, that is a huge turnaround to their season. I don't know that any of us really expect that to happen at this point, but we'll see. This is not going to be a good story to share, and I'm not going to share the video because I don't like it. It's pretty dirty, but it's the hit on Andy Dalton. This is on NFL.com. There are other full articles on it, but in case you missed it, Andy Dalton is now in concussion protocol because of a hit by a linebacker on the Washington football team. A very, very, just a cheap shot, real cheap. Dalton was scrambling, trying to slide down, and the guy led in with his kind of shoulder and helmet and hit Andy square on the head. Andy's helmet flew off, had to get carted off the field. So he is understandably in concussion protocol. Dallas has a couple of guys they're going to try and play. Obviously, Dalton came in because of Dak Prescott's ankle injury that ended his season. So you hated to see that, but good thoughts and vibes to Andy, because that was a really vicious hit and one that, he was down. He almost looked like he was knocked out for a little bit. That was not a good sign for Andy Dalton, but he got back up and was kind of helped off, and hopefully he'll return to the lineup and be healthy going forward. That was a pretty ugly hit. And yes, Spencer Miller, the player who hit Andy, was a former Steeler. I know. I almost tweeted that out today, but I just said, I don't want to throw gas on that fire. But you are correct. And unfortunately his name, I'm going through so much info right now. His name is escaping me at the moment, but yes, you are correct. You are correct that linebacker is a former Bostic. Thank you. Why not Chad 25? Thank you, John Bostic. That is the guy who hit Andy. Very, very and Andy, when he was coming down, he was sliding, and there was a guy already kind of bringing him down to the ground. I could show you the video. I don't want to do that. It's pretty ugly. So best wishes to Andy. I know he's not a Bengal anymore. I know a lot of people had some whatever feelings about him as the Bengals starting quarterback, but you obviously hope that he is okay. Now, this is big for the Browns. Unfortunately for the Bengals, they don't get to reap. Well, I don't want anybody to get hurt, obviously, especially not seriously. Got to put that out there. But the Bengals will. They I guess they benefited from it yesterday because basically it was one of the first plays of the game that Odell Beckham hurt his knee, and it was on that. It was on that interception that Darius Phillips nabbed in, but he had a knee injury, didn't return, and he tore his ACL. Didn't really even look like that serious of a, it's not like he planted and you saw it really. He just kind of crumbled a little bit and tore his ACL. So bad news for Odell Beckham, bad news for the Browns. And of course you never want anyone to get hurt, but unfortunately the Bengals won't have another game to, potentially reap the benefits of an Odell Beckham-less Browns team. But they did play them yesterday, basically a full game without Odell Beckham, and still could not come up with a win. And you can see Beckham here, 23 catches, 319 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Beckham had an injury, some injuries last year, and a kind of a disappointing season last year. But you know that he is a very talented, one of the most talented wide receivers in the league when he is healthy. So he is done for 2020, Odell Beckham Jr. because of the knee injury he suffered against the Bengals yesterday. And finally, just kind of a little bit of extra news here again on NFL.com. Cam Newton was benched yesterday. So that's pretty interesting. And the Patriots are now 2-4. He fell short of 100 passing yards, and he threw 3 picks against the 49ers. And you got to credit the 49ers, man. They have had just a mountain of injuries, and they are coming through and still winning football games. Got to tip the cap to them. And, Newton said basically it's simple, quote, it's simple. I have to play better. I'm coachable. For any type of competitor, do you feel embarrassed? Yeah. So he was benched just based on some problems there. It's been kind of an up and down year, and you're seeing the Patriots go 2-4 and the Bucs are winning some games. So for the Brady Belichick questions, as of right now, you may be getting a little bit of an answer as to the source of the success, or, obviously both are incredible at their jobs. But you're seeing what the Patriots are without Tom Brady, and it's not that great as of this point, even though Cam Newton is a very exciting quarterback and is talented, but he's struggling a little bit. I'm going a little long, guys, so I'm going to get on out of here. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Again, I'm Anthony Cosenza with Cincy Jungle and the Orange and Black Insider Bengals podcast. Thanks for joining us on this Monday afternoon, going through all the news and notes of the Cincinnati Bengals, the AFC North, and, of course, the rest of the NFL. We'll see you soon. We've got our Wednesday show, John Sheeran and I. We've got that show, and we may have a couple special guests, by the way. We're lining up some special guests. We are getting Mike Daniels back on the program, another interview opportunity with him, so that'll be interesting. You won't want to miss that. And then we may have a special guest to help us preview the Titans game. We're working on locking that one in. And then, of course, we've got our listener questions live on Friday afternoon, so join us for that. We've got the pregame show, courtesy of Narragansett Beer, on Sunday, an hour before kickoff, leading right up to kickoff, and then we've got the postgame show from there. You've got Orange is the New Black and New Stripe City doing shows in between all of that, as well as Matt Minnick's Chalk Talk as well. So download all of those. We appreciate the support. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your week. If we don't see you, have a good Halloween. That's already coming up on Saturday. Have a good and fun, safe Halloween if we don't see you, but hopefully we see you.